2 days after they took my right leg below the knee, I sent one text to my own family asking somebody to drive me home from the rehab center. My daughter wrote back, "We're closing on the lake house this afternoon, Dad. Just book a medical transport. They do it all the time." She thought that was the end of it. She didn't know I'd already signed something that morning that would take everything she thought was hers. By the time she started calling, I was 300 miles away and I wasn't picking up. "My name is Walter. No, I'll keep my real name out of this, but you can call me what my late wife called me, which was Sully, short for Sullivan, my mother's maiden name. I'm 67 years old. I spent 41 years pouring concrete and pulling permits as a general contractor in a small town outside Toledo, Ohio. I built half the additions and back porches in that county with my own 2 hands. And I built the house my daughter grew up in, board by board, in 1986, the same year my wife Rosalind found out she was pregnant. If you've ever given everything to your kids and gotten nothing back but a hand reaching for your wallet, do me a favor and stay till the end of this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. These stories find the people who need them. Just so we're clear before I go on, some details here are dramatized to make a point, and any resemblance to real folks is coincidental. The lesson, though, that part's real. The diabetes took my leg. I'd ignored the sore on my foot too long, the way stubborn men do, and by the time I finally listened to the doctor, the infection had gone into the bone. The surgery itself wasn't the hard part. The hard part was the morning of my discharge from the rehab facility. Sitting in a wheelchair by the sliding glass doors with a plastic bag in my lap holding my house keys, my wallet, and a small framed photo of Rosalind. I take everywhere since she passed 4 years back. It was a Thursday, a little after 11 in the morning. The lobby was full of life. I watched a young woman bring a balloon to her husband. I watched a grandson load his grandmother's walker into the trunk of a sedan. Real gentle, taking his time. I watched all that love walking around on 2 good legs, and I sat there with one holding a phone that wouldn't ring. I opened the family group chat. We called it the whole crew. Rosalind named it years ago, back when she'd send scripture on Sunday mornings and recipes nobody asked for. Now it was mostly me, sending updates into a silence. I typed it out slow. The doctor signed my discharge papers. "I'm ready to go home. Can one of you come get me?" I'm in the front lobby. I hit send. Delivered. Then read. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Del. Reverred. Then read. 5 minutes. 10. The little dots came up like somebody was typing. Then they vanished. Then they came back. Then my daughter. I'll call her my daughter, because at the time, that's still what she was to me. Her message landed. "Dad, we're literally signing papers on the lake place in an hour. The realtor's already here. There's a service called MediRide. Just call them. Insurance covers it. Talk tonight. Love you. Love you." With the exclamation point and everything. My daughter was 38. Her name doesn't matter. But I'll tell you, I paid for the wedding where she wore Rosalind's grandmother's pearls, and I co-signed the first mortgage on the very lake house she was closing on that afternoon. I worked Saturdays for 2 years so she could go to a private college instead of the state school, and she repaid me with a text and a MediRide brochure. I didn't answer. I called the service myself. A van came an hour and a half later, driven by a tired young man named Hector who didn't say much but loaded my wheelchair like it mattered. And that small dignity nearly broke me right there. When I got home, my key didn't fit the lock. I sat in that van in my own driveway, turning the key, thinking the cold had warped it. Hector waited. Finally, the front door opened from the inside, and there stood my son-in-law in his socks, holding a beer at noon on a Thursday, looking at me like I was a delivery he hadn't ordered. "Oh," he said, "Sully, we figured you'd be a few more days." "It's my house," I said. "Why doesn't my key work?" He had the decency to look at his feet. "We had the locks done. Security thing. The neighborhood's not what it was." That was a lie. The neighborhood was exactly what it was. That was a lie. The neighborhood was exactly what it was. He'd had them changed so I couldn't come and go without him knowing. They got me inside, my son-in-law and my daughter, who came in from the kitchen wiping her hands like she'd been interrupted. They sat me at my own table and they told me, very gently, the way you talk to a man you've already decided is finished, that things had changed while I was gone. They'd moved me out of the master bedroom, my room, The room where Rosalind died, holding my hand in a hospice bed by the window because she wanted to see the maple tree she planted go red one last time. They moved my bed out, painted the walls gray, and turned it into a nursery because, and my daughter said this with actual joy in her voice, they were expecting, and the master had the best light for the baby. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" I asked. She pointed at the door to the finished basement. The basement I framed and drywalled myself in 1994 so the kids would have somewhere to play in the winter. "Down there's perfect for you, Dad," she said. "No stairs to worry about with your you-know." She gestured vaguely at the empty space where my leg used to be. "It's private. It's quiet. Honestly, it works out for everybody." The basement, damp in spring, cold all winter. A couple of little windows up near the ceiling that let in maybe an hour of gray light a day. There was no bed down there. There was an air mattress on the concrete with one thin blanket, and my clothes shoved into contractor bags in the corner. My own contractor bags, the heavy black ones I keep in the garage. I gripped the arms of my wheelchair. I wanted to flip that table. I am still strong in the chest and the arms. 40 years of hauling block will do that. And there was a half a second where I thought about exactly how it would feel to put my fist through that gray nursery wall. And then I felt it. The folded paper in my shirt pocket, the thing I'd signed that morning. And I remembered I had something they didn't know about. And I remembered the first rule of every job I ever ran. You don't swing the hammer until the foundation's set. So I smiled. It hurt my face to do it. "You're right," I said. "Stairs would be hard. The basement's fine." My daughter looked surprised. She'd braced for a fight, had her speech ready about how I was being difficult, how they couldn't be expected to give up their lives for me. Now she had nothing to push against, and she looked almost disappointed. "Good," she said. "I'm glad you're being reasonable. There's leftover lasagna in the fridge if you're hungry. We ate already." They helped me to the top of the basement stairs, and then they let me get myself down, one arm on the rail, lowering my body in the wheelchair I now had to bump down step by step. It took me 20 minutes. Neither of them came back to check. That night I lay on that mattress in the dark, listening to them move around above me. And I want to tell you something about the house I built. I ran the ductwork myself. And in 1994, I tied the basement utility room into the master bedroom return air, a shortcut I always meant to fix and never did. Sound travels down that duct like it's a phone line held up to your ear. I learned that the hard way years ago when I overheard Rosalind crying about money she didn't want me to worry about. So that first night, I heard everything. I heard my daughter say, "He went down there like a lamb." I thought he'd lose it. I heard my son-in-law say he looked bad, gray, half dead. I heard her say, "Good. The faster he goes, the easier this is." And then I heard them talk about a place. A facility out near the county line. State-funded, the cheap kind. Smells like bleach and creamed corn. But it takes Medicaid. All they needed, she said, was to show he can't take care of himself. He's confused. He falls. He's a danger. Get power of attorney, then sell the house and use my equity, the equity in the house I built, to finish paying off their lake place and put the rest toward a bigger boat. He's only got the one leg now, she said, like that settled it. How long can he really hang on? A year, maybe, my son-in-law said. 2. Then we wait 2 weeks so it doesn't look rushed, she said. Let him heal up a little, then we make the calls. I lay there in the dark and felt the last warm thing in me go cold and quiet. Not loud. I didn't cry, not then. It was more like watching a pilot light go out, the man who wanted to forgive his only child. He died on that air mattress sometime around midnight, and I didn't grieve him, because the man who got up in his place had work to do. Here's what they didn't know. 3 weeks before my surgery, when the doctor first said the word amputation, and I understood I might not walk out of this the same man, I'd done something. There's a 40-acre parcel my father left me out by the reservoir. Scrub land I never did anything with, just paid the taxes on out of habit for 30 years. A pipeline company and then a solar developer had both been after it for 18 months. The week before my surgery, I'd quietly closed with the solar outfit, easement and sale combined. $4.2 million, wired to an account my daughter didn't know existed, at a credit union 2 towns over where I'd banked since before she was born. $4.2 million. They were planning to throw me in a state home and sell my house for the $400,000 of equity I'd built into it. They were going to trade me away for pennies, and they had no idea I was lying in their basement worth more than they'd make in 3 lifetimes. The paper in my shirt pocket that morning hadn't been a discharge form. It was a letter from the attorney I'd hired the day after I closed on the land. A sharp, decent woman named Marguerite Okonkwo, 61 years old, who'd handled a property line dispute for me a decade back and never once talked down to me. That morning, before I texted my family, I'd signed a retainer and a single instruction: be ready. At 3 in the morning, I sat up on that mattress and I texted her. It's Sully. It's worse than I thought. They've got a plan. So do I. Can you meet me tomorrow? She wrote back in 4 minutes, because good lawyers and old contractors are both insomniacs. Name the time. I'll spare you the next 2 weeks of pretending. I want you to understand what it costs, though, to lie there every morning and let my daughter bring me cold coffee and ask in her sweet poisoned voice how I was feeling, knowing what I knew. I let them think I was fading. I let my son-in-law help me up the stairs, and I made sure to wobble more than I needed to. When they accidentally left my pain medication upstairs so I'd have to ask, I asked, polite as church. I was building my case the same way they were building theirs. The difference was I had cameras. Marguerite's investigator put 2 of them in for me on a day my daughter took her prenatal appointment and my son-in-law went to the gym. One in the smoke detector in the living room. One in the vent grill in the hallway outside the nursery. I'm an old man who wired his own house. Tucking a camera into a junction box is nothing. Over those 2 weeks, I caught all of it. I caught my son-in-law going through my wallet and pocketing the $40 I keep for emergencies, laughing, saying, "What's he going to spend it on down there? Dust?" I caught my daughter on the phone with the facility, describing a confused, aggressive, falling old man who bore no resemblance to me. And I caught the thing that finished it. I came up one night around 2, hauling myself up the stairs because they'd left my insulin in the kitchen fridge. On purpose, I'm sure now. Another little test of how much I tolerate. The house was dead quiet. On my way back, I passed the nursery. The door was open. And on the dresser, knocked over on its side under a stack of baby catalogs, was Rosalind's jewelry box. The cherry wood one I made her in my shop for our 20th anniversary, dovetailed corners. Her initials burned into the lid. I opened it. Inside was a tangle, everything dumped together, and in the center, where she always kept the one thing that mattered, her mother's wedding ring, a little half-carat in white gold from 1951 that Rosalind wore on a chain after her hands got too swollen. The ring she made me promise would go to our daughter's daughter someday. There was nothing. An empty velvet slot. Folded under the tangle was a receipt. An estate buyer downtown. 3 weeks old. 1 vintage diamond ring. White gold. Family piece. $220. Stable behind it, a confirmation from a cruise line. A deposit, same day, same amount, for a couple's getaway to Cozumel. They sold Rosalind's mother's ring, the ring meant for the baby growing in that very room, to put a down payment on a vacation. They pawned the promise I made to my dying wife so they could lie on a beach. I didn't make a sound. I closed the box. I set it back exactly the way it was, on its side, under the catalogs. And I went down those stairs in the dark, one at a time, and I called Marguerite, and when she answered, I didn't recognize my own voice. "Change the plan," I said. "What happened?" "They sold her ring. Move everything up. I want it done at the party, because here's the part that makes it perfect. My daughter, who had no idea I had a dime beyond the house, had been telling everyone she knew that her father had come into some money. She'd heard a rumor about the land offer, and assumed wrong. Assumed I'd taken a smaller cash deal and stashed it, and she had decided to throw a party, a big one, at the nicest country club in the county, the one we could never afford to join when she was a girl, the one whose members used to look right through a contractor's family. She'd invited 150 people to celebrate. And at this party, I was supposed to stand up and announce that I was transferring control of the family money into a trust with the 2 of them as beneficiaries. She'd put the deposit on a credit card she'd opened in my name. I know, because Marguerite found it. I let her plan the whole thing. I let her order the shrimp tower in the open bar. The morning of the party, I had Marguerite drive me downtown, and I bought Rosalind's mother's ring back from the estate buyer for $900. And I'll tell you, holding that little ring in my palm in the front seat of her Buick, that was the only time in this whole story I came apart. I cried like the day of the funeral. Then I put it in my breast pocket, right next to Rosalind's photo, and I told Marguerite to drive me to the club. The ballroom had chandeliers. My daughter had wanted chandeliers her whole life. She was in a silver dress that cost more than my first truck, holding court, glowing, telling the country club wives how she'd always made sure her father was taken care of. My son-in-law was sweating in a rented tux, drinking scotch too fast. There was a big projection screen behind the little stage, set up to show a slideshow of happy family photos. I'd had Marguerite's tech put something else on a thumb drive in that projector. When they called me up, my daughter took my arm in front of everyone and walked me to the microphone like I was a prop. My son-in-law wheeled my chair behind me. The crowd did the gentle pity clap people give a sick old man. I took the mic. It felt good in my hand. 40 years of holding a 40-ounce framing hammer, a microphone weighs nothing. My daughter says tonight is about family, I started. My voice came out rougher than I meant, and the room went quiet to hear me. She's right. Tonight is about figuring out who your family really is. She smiled, thinking I was being sweet. Let me tell you about a man, I said. A man who poured concrete for 41 years so his little girl could have soft hands. A man who built her a house, paid for her wedding, co-signed her first mortgage. And then this man got sick, lost his leg, and when he sat in a wheelchair and asked his only child for a ride home, she texted him a brochure and went to close on a lake house. A few people laughed, nervous, thinking it was a roast. My daughter's smile started to slip. When that man got home, I said, slower now. His key didn't work. They changed the locks. They'd given his bedroom to a baby and put him on an air mattress in the basement. And then, at night, through the ductwork in the house he'd built with his own hands, that man heard his daughter and her husband plan to declare him incompetent, lock him in a state facility, and sell his house out from under him. The room had gone silent. The kind of silence that is weight. My son-in-law stepped toward me. Okay, Sully, that's enough, you're tired. I pressed the clicker in my pocket. The screen lit up behind us. My living room, grainy and gray, the timestamp 10 days old, and my daughter's voice came out of the ballroom speakers, clear as a bell, saying, "How long can he really hang on? He's only got the one leg now." The crowd gasped like one body. The next clip was my son-in-law, my wallet in his hand. The $40, that laugh. What's he gonna spend it on down there, Dust? Somebody near the back said out loud, "My God." I let the last clip play. My daughter in the dresser in the nursery holding up the empty jewelry box, saying into her phone, "It's just an old ring. It's not worth crying over. She's dead. What does she care?" That was the one that turned them. A room full of country club people who judged my family for 20 years, and even they had a line. And selling a dead mother's ring for a vacation was on the wrong side of it. The faces changed. The pity drained out and something colder came in. My daughter was crying now, real tears. Mascara going. Dad, please, turn it off. People are filming." I turned to the room. "She wanted you all to know who she is," I said. "Now you do." My son-in-law lunged for the microphone and 2 men in dark suits I'd hired stepped out from beside the stage and sat him right back down. Marguerite walked up the steps calm as Sunday and opened her briefcase. "You should know," she said to my daughter, to the whole room, "that everything Mr. Sullivan signed last week was real. The quitclaim deed you had him sign to simplify the estate transferred the house to him alone and out of any joint tenancy. The trust you were promised tonight doesn't have your names in it." She held up a single sheet. "It's a charitable trust. As of 9 o'clock this morning, the entire proceeds of the land sale, $4.2 million, have been irrevocably transferred to the Rosalind Sullivan Foundation." You could have heard a pin drop on carpet. My daughter couldn't finish it. "There was no 4 million. There was the land. It was a small deal, It was 4.2, I said. "And it's gone. It's going to build assisted living homes for old people whose kids threw them away. The first one breaks ground in your mother's name in the spring. Not $1 of it is yours." "But the house," my son-in-law said, gray now himself. "We still have. You signed it to me," I said. "And I sold it this morning. To a young couple, school teachers, 2 kids. They take possession in an hour. Whatever you didn't move out is going on the curb. The crew's already on the way." I have replayed the next 10 seconds in my mind on a lot of good nights since. My daughter's face when the last door closed. The country club manager appearing with two men holding clipboards, announcing for the whole room that her credit card had been declined. The one in my name, which I reported and frozen that morning. The catering bill. The bar tab. The papers a process server handed her right there in her silver dress, because the lake house deal I'd co-signed had fallen through the moment my signature was withdrawn, and the bank wanted its earnest money back. My son-in-law put his face in his hands. My daughter screamed at me, said I'd ruined her, said I was a cruel old man, said no real father would do this to his child. I leaned down so she could hear me without the microphone. A real father, I said, doesn't put his little girl in a basement to die. I had a daughter once. I think she's gone. But I hope for that baby's sake you find her again someday. You won't find her in my money. I put the microphone down on the stage. I wheeled myself toward the doors and the crowd parted for me like water, and Marguerite walked beside me carrying her briefcase, and behind me I could hear my whole old life coming apart, and my chest, for the first time in years, didn't hurt at all. That was 8 months ago. I'm telling you this from a porch in the Carolina mountains, on a small place I bought outright. 1 floor, no stairs, wide doors, a ramp I designed myself. My leg gives me trouble in the cold, but I get around fine. The foundation has a director now and a board, and we cut the ribbon on the first home in May. 40 units. I went to the opening, and I shook the hand of a 91-year-old woman whose son had left her in a hallway at a hospital, and she held my hand in both of hers and called me an angel, and I had to walk outside so nobody'd see me. I never told my daughter where I went. The divorce was quick, since there was nothing left to split but debt, and the last I heard she's renting a room and her husband's gone. The baby was born in the fall. A girl. I know that because a card came, forwarded twice. No return address, just a photo of an infant and 3 words on the back in my daughter's handwriting. I'm so sorry. I keep that photo in a drawer. I don't look at it much, but I bought a small fireproof safe, and inside it, wrapped in tissue, is Rosalind's mother's ring. And in my will, which Marguerite drew up clean and tight, that ring and a trust go to that little girl on her 18th birthday, to her directly, where her mother can't touch it, along with a letter from a grandfather she'll probably never meet, telling her that she came from people who built things with their hands, and that being family is something you do, not something you're owed. I trusted the wrong person for a long time because she was my blood, and I almost let that cost me my life and my dignity both. Don't do what I did. Protect yourself early. Sign the papers while your mind is clear. And remember that the people who love you are the ones who show up to drive you home, not the ones who send a brochure. The sun's going down behind the ridge now. And a friend of mine, an old plumber I've known since the Carter administration, is coming up the drive with a cooler and a deck of cards. My heart is steady. My leg is gone. But I am whole in every way that ever mattered. If this story reached you, tell me where you're watching from and stay a while. There's more I've got to tell, and I'd be glad of the company. The key that didn't fit my own front door told me everything I needed to know, but I didn't act on it that night. I sat on that air mattress and I listened. And listening is the thing that saved me. If I had flipped the table the way my arms wanted to, my daughter and her husband would have called me unstable, and they'd have had a story to tell the state about a confused old man who falls and rages. Every cruel thing they did handed me a piece of the case against them. That's how it works. People who throw their parents in basements rarely stop to think that a man who wired his own house also knows where the cameras go. I want you to understand that I didn't beat them with money. The $4 million was just the weight at the end of the rope. What actually carried me through those 2 weeks of lying still and smiling at the woman who wanted me dead was something quieter. It was the patience to wait until the foundation was set before I swung. It was the clear head to call Marguerite at 3 in the morning instead of screaming up the stairs. And underneath all of it was a simple refusal to let what they did to me turn me into something I'd be ashamed of in front of Rosalind's photograph. Here's the part I keep coming back to alone on this porch. I could have kept that money. $4.2 million and a house full of furniture, and the satisfaction of being a rich old man who got the last laugh. Instead, I gave nearly all of it to strangers who got thrown away the same way I almost was. I tell you that not to sound noble, because I'm not, but because the choice is the whole lesson. The strength to outlast a betrayal is worth nothing if you spend it becoming as small as the people who hurt you. My daughter sold her own mother's ring for a vacation. The distance between her and me was never about the leg or the house or even the money. It was about what each of us was willing to do to the people we promised to protect. So if you take one thing from an old contractor who got it wrong for 38 years, take this. Watch what people do when they think you can't do anything back. That tells you who they are. Then keep your own hands clean. Keep your mind a step ahead, and find it in yourself to stand back up even when they've taken a part of you off the table for good. Sign your papers while your thinking is sharp. Tell the people you love that you love them with your actions. The way you show up to drive someone home in the rain. I lost a leg and a daughter in the same season, but I am sitting here whole. And somewhere a 91-year-old woman in one of Rosalind's homes is sleeping in a warm bed tonight instead of a hallway. That's the only revenge I ever really needed.